Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin tonight in Nunvoot, where some residents of King 8's and former family services employees are furious over the treatment of foster children in the community. CBC has spoken to several people directly impacted. They say the conditions at the department's facility in the community are unacceptable. One family also alleges their child was taken out of the community because the required paperwork wasn't filed. Samuel Watt reports.
These pictures show a small window into what's happening inside King 8's Family Services building. Monica Manning posted these in May. She was a babysitter there for 2 months before she quit.
I was feeling uncomfortable every day when I got home, knowing they're going somewhere else.
She says there's a lack of foster parents, especially during work hours, so oftentimes she says children are kept inside a boardroom in the department's facility during the day. She says they don't get fresh air all day, nor is there healthy food, toys, activities, even space for them to nap.
They did absolutely nothing. They watched one movie.
CBC spoke to a family member of a child under family services care. We're not naming them as it's illegal to identify children in care. The family member wanted to become the child's foster parent, but they alleged that family services wouldn't allow that because of a paperwork issue. And family services sent the child out of King 8 because there was no foster placement for them.
They would always just end up calling the cops on me, because I would just get angry and frustrated.
Some complaints about the treatment of children in the facility are detailed in exchanges between government officials obtained by CBC. One letter states temporary measures were deployed shortly after Manning's post to, quote, stabilise the situation.
This is a direct attack on these dedicated professionals and on the values we hold as Nunavut.
At the Legislative Assembly last month, Nakashuk denounced the abuse social service workers are receiving. CBC has spoken to 2 former workers who've been with the King 8 team. We're not naming them as it may harm their employment with the GN. They're frustrated at the lack of support and supervisors in the community, and they say there's often crisis after crisis that results in burnout, people quitting, and cases not being followed through. Nunavut has more than 500 cases of children receiving family services care, and nearly half of those are in foster care.
That's a staggering amount of young people.
Jane Bates, the Territory's child and youth representative, says she saw firsthand the conditions in King 8 last year and reported them to family services. However, she says issues with office space, case follow-ups, are not limited to just King 8. Those were critical points in recent reports into the department by the Auditor General. Ultimately, she believes there is a lack of standards and guidelines on children in care.
That's a major issue, because how can you expect consistent, ethical, equitable services to be delivered to children in care?
Family Services has refused multiple requests for comment, pointing to confidentiality reasons and previous reports on the state of the department's operations. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
There was another fatal accident in the Yukon over the weekend. RCMP say a motorhome went off the road on Sunday. A man and woman from Arizona were traveling on the Alaska Highway south of Whitehorse. Police say the man died in hospital. This follows a fatal accident south of the Lewis River Bridge that we told you about on Friday evening. We now know that 2 Alaskan men were traveling in a truck when it rolled over. The passenger was treated for minor injuries, but the driver died. A Hay River man who pleaded guilty to child luring has been sentenced to 18 months in jail. Jerome Bruja was at his hearing today in a Yellowknife courtroom. He was already listed on a sex offender registry for 20 years from a conviction in 2019. With this offense, he'll now be on the registry for life. Nadir Hashmi has more.
A warning, some details in the story might be distressing for viewers. Northwest Territories Supreme Court Justice Sheila McPherson sentenced Jerome Bruja to 18 months incarceration. She says the Crown and the defense joint submission is appropriate. According to an agreed statement of facts, the incidents took place in December 2022. Bruja was then 24 years old. He contacted a 14-year-old girl on Snapchat, a social media app. He asked for naked pictures and made sexual advances in private messages to her, even after the girl repeatedly told Bruja that she was 14. Crown Prosecutor Morgan Fain says the messages were sexually explicit and direct. Fain also highlighted Bruha's past criminal record, most notably a sexual assault conviction in 2019 for which he served 2 years in jail. He was then listed on a sex offender registry for 20 years. Bruha's lawyer says Bruha is remorseful and takes responsibility for his actions. Bruha also spoke in court and said what he did was unacceptable to the victim and is truly sorry. The judge says the sentence is sufficient and sends a message of denunciation and deterrence. He won't be able to communicate online with people under 18 for 3 years after his release. Justice McPherson says she hopes Bruha learns to appropriately communicate with individuals. With credit for time served, Bruha will be in jail for another 11 months. With this offence, McPherson also said it's mandatory for Bruha to be added to the sex offender list for life. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A new study is predicting smoke from future wildfires could slow warming temperatures in the Arctic by 38%. That's based on projections for the next 35 years. A professor at the University of Washington says sunlight and smoke can work collaboratively to bring temperatures down.
This increase in the fires and emissions from these fires, basically they end up reflecting more sunlight. And also when that smoke interacts with clouds, they also make clouds brighter. So essentially both of those effects, you end up reflecting more sunlight and you slow down the rate of warming.
However, he says it doesn't reverse the trend of climate change. He also says wildfires have many negative effects.
These fires have tremendous negative impacts, whether it's on human health through air quality, human infrastructure, and then, just the health and biodiversity of the forests themselves.
Blanchard Rigglesworth says the study could lead to people understanding more about the unintended consequences of wildfires. Nunvoot wants to create more home builders. That goal, among others, was recently discussed at a housing forum in Iqaluit. The 4-day event brought together hundreds of industry leaders. They say if the territory wants to meet its goal of 3,000 new homes in the next 5 years, they need skilled tradespeople, and the time to train them is now. Caitlin Joannis has that story.
Developing more local tradespeople was a big theme at this year's Nunavoot's Housing Symposium, as local leaders and stakeholders met to discuss how to tackle Nunavoot's housing crisis. Jackie Price is the vice president of Nunavoot Arctic College. She says the territory students are also feeling the housing crunch.
Student housing is another area that is limited. We don't have enough student housing for the amount of students that want to come and learn with the college across the territory.
Price says more builders are key to solving the housing issue. That's why Arctic College in Rankin Inlet is using hands-on learning to help fill its housing needs and building new student housing as part of its curriculum.
Trade School completed 2 houses in partnership with Nunvoot Housing Corp and the Rankin Inlet Housing Corporation. And right now the college is working to build 3 duplexes that will act as student housing in Rankin Inlet.
Sanda Kaunak is the Associate Deputy Minister for Family Services. She says the department supports developing local tradespeople through funding support.
For people that are studying to build houses such as carpentry, electrician, and such, all these things are what we as Family Services are obligated to support.
The Nunavoot Housing Forum was held in Iqaluit from June 9th to the 12th. Caitlin Joannis, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is hosting the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta. Over 2 days, he'll meet with leaders of some of the world's economic powers, including the United States. Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump had a meeting ahead of the wider summit. Trump struck an optimistic note publicly, saying he believes the 2 leaders can reach a trade deal within weeks. Ashley Burke has more.
G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership.
The Prime Minister tried to Trump-proof the G7, and for the most part it's working, but the President did launch into one attack about his perceived political enemies.
I look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. and I would say that that was a mistake.
Donald Trump wrongly blamed Justin Trudeau. Stephen Harper was prime minister when Russia was expelled from the summit a decade ago.
The head of your country, the proud head of your country, didn't want him. This was a big mistake.
But on trade and U.S. tariffs, some faint signs of progress.
I have a tariff concept, and Mark has a different concept, which is something that some people like. But we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it today. I'm a tariff person.
Trump optimistic, saying they can work something out.
Do you think a deal is achievable within days, within weeks? Is there that kind of runway?
Yeah, it's achievable. Both parties have to agree. Yeah, sure.
Carney looked like he wanted to keep the moment brief.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to exercise my role, if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president.
With that, media were moved out.
Let it go.
Out.
Come on, guys.
And the G7 officially began. Carney's hosting the summit for the first time. It's up to him to guide 2 days of talks in Kananaskis, Alberta, with some of the most powerful leaders in the world, as they face a trade war launched by one of their own G7 members.
So as I said, we're meeting at one of those hinge moments, those turning points in history.
With an ongoing war in Ukraine, escalating conflicts in the Middle East, and global tariffs, there's a lot for leaders to talk about. But it's also a chance for Carney to set the agenda on Canada's terms. Carney says he wants to have frank discussions over the next few days and hopes to find consensus on some key issues. But with Trump already showing some signs of disagreement this morning, that may not be easy. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Banff, Alberta.
We're always doing something that's connected to music, and it always finds a way to bring us closer as a family, closer physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally.
I realize how important it is to have the representation of it, to have Indigenous folk on stage, singing their songs, doing their thing.
What I can say is that I feel connected, which is cool.
Don't miss Resonate, Songs of Resilience.
This astonishing world, with its infinite possibilities, calls to the world shapers, impact makers, visioneers. Together, let's unlock potential everywhere.
Welcome to your new home.
Mais il est trop chaud. He understands French. I'm not seeing this as a suicide.
Someone sure wanted us to think it was.
Gallagher is suspect number one.
Tell me, was it the man's politics you didn't like, or the fact that he's living with your wife? I know he's into something. I just gotta prove it.
No, we all have a past. Find his.
Be careful around Fitz. Donnie's got a lot of demons that tend to appear when no one expects it.
12 of Britain's best amateur bakers have made it to the tent.
This is an absolute dream.
Every inch of their baking skill will be scrutinised.
Lovely jubbly.
Those that falter will leave the tent.
One wrong move and it's over.
You want a game? Bring it on.
Go, go, go!
Oh my God! We need help out there.
Yeah, we'll come for you.
This is it! Canada's ultimate challenge.
Our family is about to do something we've never done before.
Leave the store while we go to India.
Looks like you're not going back.
The NWT Supreme Court issued 3 decisions last week on cabins built without leases on public land. In 2 cases, the court ruled that the owners need to take their cabins down. Carla Ulrich has that story.
The cases were brought to court under the territorial government's unauthorized occupancy project. The government launched the project in 2021 to address hundreds of cabins built without land leases. In 2 of the cases, the judge has ordered the cabins to be removed. One owner, Matt Pond, argued his Indigenous status should entitle him to stay, but the court says his current membership is with a First Nation outside the territory, and his plan to transfer bands didn't give him legal rights to the land. In the second case, Frank Walsh argued that he should get to keep the cabin because he's owned it for over 15 years. But the court says that legal argument doesn't apply to public land. The third case involves Thomas Van Dam, who bought his cabin in 2015. Since then, he's been trying to obtain a lease, even making significant changes to comply with the requirements. In Van Dam's case, the judge denied eviction and told the territorial government to reassess because the government's documents didn't fully explain why his cabin didn't meet the evaluation criteria. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
Yellowknife's new aquatic center has been open for just over a month, and lots of people have been coming out to swim. But the popularity means the pool needs more staff. Luke Carroll reports.
Yellowknifers sure like to swim. They like it so much, they may need to wait in a line to get into the new pool. More than 18,500 people have visited the city's new aquatic center since it opened in early May. But there hasn't always been enough lifeguards to meet that demand. The city of Yellowknife says it's actively recruiting more. A spokesperson says the city has doubled its part-time staff since last year, but warned visitors during peak times may still need to wait to get into the pool because there has to be one lifeguard for approximately 35 swimmers. The Alberta and NWT Life Saving Society is the organization responsible for certifying lifeguards. They believe this pool will help youth and adults be safer in the water, and they're ready to help train more lifeguards.
We're very excited for Yellowknife. We're happy to support them with opening their new facility. We're committed to supporting them in the future regarding drowning prevention initiatives, building up their capacity by providing those leadership courses and hoping that they can get those swimming lessons in there.
Lalonde says fewer lifeguards were certified during the pandemic, but that numbers have returned to normal. The issue is that the pool has gotten bigger, and so has the number of people wanting to swim in it. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Construction of a new science building is underway at Yukon University. The $52 million facility is expected to be completed in 2027. The new building will have modern labs, classrooms, and an outdoor learning space. It'll also feature the university's first intentional space for holding traditional ceremonies. The design incorporates both Western science and traditional knowledge. The chief of the Kwanlin Dun First Nation says that balance is important.
This picture of bringing Western science system and structures in balance with our traditional knowledge systems, ways of knowing and doing, is very powerful and presents a number of different opportunities for younger people, attending university here and doing their studies that are supported in these areas, and for First Nation people, Kwanlin Dun citizens, and other First Nation Indigenous citizens, it really makes it more relevant, when we apply more of our identity, our culture, our history, and ways of doing it.
The federal and Yukon governments are funding the project. The Yukon University Foundation will raise an additional $1.5 million. Ticks are showing up in more places and earlier in the season than ever before, and they're carrying the risk of disease. The CBC's Joanna Wagstaff looks at how climate change may be making matters worse and explains why public health experts say it's time to pay attention.
No one likes to see these little guys coming, but unfortunately, they're not just a summer problem anymore, and they're not just an Eastern Canada thing either. This year, you'll find them in more places, but not all ticks come with the same problems. Here's where to be on the lookout and what you need to know depending on where you live. So ticks used to hang out mainly in southern Ontario, but they're expanding their range, especially the black-legged lime-carrying variety. Now, they're in almost every southern province. Thanks to climate change, these 8-legged arachnids, yes, they're cousins of spiders, are moving north and west fast, around 50 kilometers per year. Warmer winters mean more ticks survive the cold. Ideally, it stays above 4 degrees for them. So longer springs and falls give them extra time to feed and breed. One well-fed female can lay up to 3,000 eggs. Plus, their hitchhiking hosts, deer, mice, birds, they're moving north too. This year, Eastern Canada had a mild winter and a damp spring, basically perfect tick weather. In places like New Brunswick, researchers are finding huge numbers of ticks.
Depending where you are, the percentage of ticks that are infected, as you go further north, it can be as low as 15%. When you're the south, southern Ontario, southern Nova Scotia, middle of Nova Scotia, 70-80%. It's kind of appalling.
Okay, but here's the part that really gets me. They're basically crawling bags of pathogens. Lyme is the big one, but they can also spread other viruses too, sometimes multiple infections from just one bite. If you're in BC though, the picture is a little different. Ticks are on the rise, but Lyme rates have stayed low. Less than 1% of ticks tested carry that bacteria. That's partly thanks to different species, different hosts, and different vegetation here. It's a similar story across the southern prairies. Most ticks don't carry the virus, but numbers are climbing. So Canada doesn't track ticks nationally in real time, but apps like eTick show a clear spike in reports this year. It's not perfect data, but it's telling. People are noticing and uploading a lot. So what can you do? Stick to trails, wear long socks, check for ticks after you've been outside, especially on kids and dogs. And if you find a tick on you, basically a freckle with legs, don't panic. The tick usually needs to be attached for over 24 hours to transmit the disease. Use tweezers, grab the tick as close to your skin as possible and pull straight out. Clean the bite area, keep an eye on the bite site for rash or flu-like symptoms, and see a doctor if anything feels off. I leave you with very good news. One day soon, we hope to have a vaccine. Scientists are working on it. Until then, enjoy the outdoors, just be tick smart.
That was the CBC's Joanna Wagstaff. The annual Yukon Kennel Club Dog Show wrapped up today. Judges, competitors, and spectators gathered at Takini Arena in Whitehorse over the weekend. They watched dogs, big and small, strut their stuff. Despite highway closures just south of the territory from forest fires, the event drew visitors from across Canada and Alaska. They were eager to experience a dog show in a unique location. The show is the northernmost conformational dog show in Canada. A Turkish man says he wants to see the whole world before he dies by bicycle. Gürkan Genç has been riding his bike for the past 15 years. He's visited more than 70 countries and logged thousands of kilometers. And now he's in the Yukon. The CBC's George Moratis met up with him in Whitehorse.
Over the past 15 years, this is something Gürkan Genç has done a lot of, riding his bike over 140,000 kilometers across 71 countries.
I said, I have only one life in this planet, so I want to do something best for my life. So I'm cycling around the world. I'm writing articles about my trips on my webpage. I wrote 4 kid books. Actually, I had a very nice life. I had an Italian restaurant. I sold my Italian restaurant and I said, okay, I opened an Italian restaurant, but I never been there before. Yes, that's it. I didn't see the world. The time is past. At that time, I was 31.
Everything he needs right here on this bike.
Batteries and dynamo. I charge everything with my dynamo. And yeah, one speaker, GPS system, iPad, GoPro, and other things here. Winter clothes, summer clothes, both of them here. This bike can carry 26-liter water, 10 kilo food, and total bag capacity is the 68 liter. So this trip also showed me the minimalist lifestyle. Yeah, I have 3 pants, 3 t-shirts. Last 15 years, I see how the humankind destroyed this planet. So, yes, we try to destroy actually this planet, but actually we destroy our humankind. Planet is still continue to live, but we are not going to live anymore if we continue like this. I passed Russia minus 57 degree. I camped Arctic Circle in Finland minus 45 degree. I passed the Sahara Desert 61 degree plus. I learned how to use my time perfectly. So I understand the time is the important thing in our life. I think that I spent my time very well on this my time periods. on this planet. Yeah, I learned it very well now.
His world travels have not come without mishaps.
Algeria, sickness because of the water. In Saudi Arabia, a truck hit me, so there's some operations here and here you see, and some aesthetic operations on my face. Teeth are also fake.
Wow.
And I broke my left arm in Patagonia.
You're happy though.
Yeah,
Look at
I'm
you.
happy. Yeah, I'm really. So I keep continue.
Up next on his travels, Fairbanks, Alaska, before eventually making his way back home to Turkey. George Moratis, CBC News, Whitehorse.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.